in the Buddhist world, there is for a religion that is the most tolerant in its philosophy and teaching, there is unfortunately a tendency of a new militancy that has been growing in the last half decade or decade, and we're seeing this in both Sri Lanka and in Myanmar, where a certain stream of militant Buddhism has been at times quite violently anti other religions and religious groups, specifically Muslims, but also to a lesser extent perhaps the Christian community. Well, the arguments presented in both Sri Lanka and in Myanmar are very similar. Firstly, this has caught some attention in the international media. The best known resources or journalistic investigation on this phenomena was probably the Time magazine's cover article, "The Face of Buddhist Terror," which dealt with this subject, and then several years ago an Al Jazeera documentary that was titled "Monks of War." And basically the arguments would be that it'll deal with identity. If one is Sri Lankan, that means you have to be Sinhala. If you are Sinhala, it has to be Buddhist, and Sinhala Buddhists are the primary Sri Lankans. This is the same argument perhaps used in Myanmar. If you are Burma, to be Burma means to be Buddhist, and so there is a strong identification, community identity with the religion. But underlying this identity argument is also seemingly economic interest, because then there would be arguments that the religious minorities are dominating commerce. They are keeping out the majority community from certain trades, and so there's certainly economic arguments that are made, and there seems to be also some power or political arguments that are made, which is that perhaps the majority religion or these particular organizations that are claiming to speak for Buddhism should be having a prominent political role or political power. Well, dialogue is certainly the way to go and the very first start if there are tensions and conflicts in society, particularly in democratic society. Sri Lanka is a society with a long democratic tradition, and Myanmar is making the transition to a functioning democracy. So certainly dialogue would be the preferred way to go. Unfortunately, the main organizations that are leading the fight and engaging in the violence certainly demonstrate no interest whatsoever in engaging in any dialogue or in any engagement with the religious minorities that they are attacking. But certainly, when one looks at in the Sri Lankan context, when one looks at the situation, having just come out of a 3-decade-long ethnic conflict or ethnic war, and being post-war, and you see the seeds of a new conflict being sown quite rapidly, you can't really stay idle. And even in the absence of an interest in dialogue between the protagonists, you still try to engage moderate factions, try to contribute to the discussion and the debate, challenge these exclusive sort of views in the realm of ideas, engage government and policymakers on on seeking to push back on what is clearly a very anti-minority, majoritarian, and violently so type of ethno-religious majoritarian nationalism.